at Titan_DK. He said, "Hey, Buck, love what you do, bro. Try to eat a small bag of Lay's original chips. The grease coats your vocal cords. That is a trick from The Voice. I am a singer. It has worked for me." And you know what? It did. Your boy is feeling fine. I'm all, vocally lubricated, and we're going to be able to power through real nice.
Is that why there's no Lay's chips in the vending machine?
Oh, really? Is there not?
You bought them out? I actually wanted Lay's chips today with my lunch, and there's none left. So I got some Doritos.
What your typical pre-show meal of a honey bun and like a bag of chips?
Well, I got a bag of chips for later. I got to eat. I'm here from 10 to 3. There's no Lay's chips.
Well, that's because I ate them all. Listen, I appreciate all of the work that you do. I do not want you to go hungry. If it's your well-being versus my voice, I'm going to take my voice. We need this at this particular point because otherwise it'd have to be you.
And I'm going to take my well-being. We're at a standstill.
No, it's how we break the tiebreakers around here. You get one vote, and my vote counts for 2.
And then I turn your mic off. Don't forget who ultimately holds the power here.
615-737-1045 is how you get involved. Jostone 1468 on Twitch says, watching live from Stokely Hall in Knoxville, Tennessee this AM. Isn't that where Caden Salter got popped for pot?
Yes.
Isn't that Stokely Hall?
It's one of the newest dorms. It was not there when I got to Tennessee in 2014. A new palatial dorm next to the athletic facility.
Oh, are they nice?
Yeah.
That's the worst when you that's like me graduating Indiana. Not even a full year after I graduated Indiana. I went through the sports broadcasting program there, even though I was a political science major. It's a whole complicated, it's basically dumb luck that I ended up doing what I do for a living. But in the time that I spent using the facilities at Indiana for sports broadcasting before I ultimately ended up down here, I graduated in May. I kid you not, Lucas. 2 weeks later, Mark Cuban donated $14 million for a new sports media and technology facility.
He and IU grad?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee is a different campus from when I was there. They did construction throughout my 4 years there, and then by the time I left, they had pretty much finished most of it, and now it's just beautiful, and it looks nothing like it did when I got there.
So perhaps Jostone 1468 is waking and baking from Stokely Hall this morning.
Hopefully not
Tennessee.
with Caden Salter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who's back with the team, by the way.
It's very exciting news. Thank you for joining us, wherever it is that you join us, whether you're on terrestrial radio, whether you're on Zone TV, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitter. You can hang out physically in the studio with us. It's always a pleasure to have you guys here. Before we get to Eric Galko, because Eric is somebody who has a long background, a long career in football. Most notably, right now, he is the director of football operations and player personnel for the Shrine Bowl. So he does it's like when we have our friend Jim Nagy of the Senior Bowl on, somebody who does a great deal of scouting, has a long background in football, and he made some important points about the Titans' acquisition of Julio Jones that we'll get into later with Eric. But we'll start here because I don't know. I mean, you guys are getting nonstop Julio Jones coverage. Right? And so every day, what Lucas and I, what we try to accomplish with our show is we walk in here and we try to figure out, okay, what new angle can we take on the thing that you guys care the most about? Right now, it's Julio Jones. On Friday, it will probably be Vols baseball, and we will pivot then. There will be some Vols baseball talk and Vandy baseball talk today as well. But we are tasked every morning walking in here to talk about the thing that you guys care about most, which remains Julio Jones. So, in this particular morning, we are going to take the approach of looking at the financials. Now, we did a little bit of this yesterday, and Ryan Tannehill, the news of his restructure, broke while we were on air. And Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network added some context to this yesterday on national television when he was talking about basically how the Titans went about facilitating Julio Jones and how Ryan Tannehill made it all possible.
Yeah, they did, MJ. That is what the Tennessee Titans spent today doing, and this has been a trade in several different facets. Of course, Sunday, striking the deal with the Atlanta Falcons for a second-round pick and a little more for Julio Jones yesterday and then into today. Jones took his physical. Doesn't sound like anything alarming or concerning there. And then today was about creating the cap space necessary to facilitate this deal. So, of course, Ryan Tannehill with the 4-year, $118 million extension originally was set to count against the cap $24.5 million this year. They took most of that, turned it into a signing bonus, spread it out through the rest of the contract, plus 2 voidable years. Anyway, clears $18.3 million in cap space, more than enough to fit the $15.3 million fully guaranteed in Julio Jones' contract. Meanwhile, Jones took to Instagram today, thanked the city of Atlanta for his decade there, says he is excited about Nashville for his next chapter.
It's Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network. So, not only was there a restructure, because Rappaport added this context via Twitter later in the day, because the initial report was, and this is from his Twitter account, @Rapsheet, to facilitate the completion of the trade of former Falcons wide receiver Julio Jones, Titans are doing a simple restructure of quarterback Ryan Tannehill's contract for 2021 to create more than $15 million in cap space, according to sources. Jones will make $15.3 million guaranteed this season. Then later he added the tweet with which you just heard, where he's saying that the Titans actually created $18.3 million in cap space, adding 2 voidable years to the deal. Now, voidable years are very, very much in vogue. This is something that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have employed to keep almost all of their starters from the Super Bowl winning team last year in place. This is something that Jayon Brown, a tool that was used to give Jayon Brown a 3-year deal that was actually a 1-year deal, in the way that it makes the finances easier to manipulate. Because that's the question that we got once free agency started. Tom Brady took a deal with a 4-year extension that actually voids down into 1. Taysom Hill has done this as well. The New Orleans Saints have famously used voidable years as a contract tool to be able to skirt the rules on the salary cap. So Ryan Tannehill has given you that as well. He has given you the ability through voidable years to add or to create this $18.3 million in cap space. So now the question that I have continuously gotten is, okay, so who else are the Titans going to add? Who else are they going to continue to add, given that it's $3 million more than you were expected to get, plus $2.25 million from Kevin Johnson, who retired on Friday. You get that back with his retirement. And they had $3.9 million before the Julio Jones acquisition. I've got people in my mentions talking about the Titans need to create a super team. Give them Melvin Ingram. Give them Justin Houston. Give them Trey Burton at tight end, who's still out there on the open market. Tyler Eifert. Every name that you've
signed Travis Kelce while we're at it.
All of them. Get all of them. Trade for Justin Tucker at kicker. They'll never lose again. But there are a few things before we get into this conversation about future compensation that the Titans will have to their benefit that lessens the blow, what little blow that you took in trading for Julio Jones. We'll get into that with Eric Galko here in just a second. But here's something that I need you to keep in mind, okay? For the Titans, yes, they do have a little bit of wiggle room as we sit here on June the 9th. That is accurate. This is the time period when only the top 51 contracts count against your salary cap. By the time roster cutdown day gets here, it will be the top 53, and you will have needed that additional financial flexibility that Ryan Tannehill, the restructure, coupled with the voidable years, will give you to make everything work. Because prior to trading for Julio Jones, they were about just under $4 million under the salary cap, top 51. When top 53 went into place, they would have been about $6 million over. So Kevin Johnson is going to help with that. The restructure and the voidable years are going to help with that. But it does not necessarily mean that it will not take some other financial maneuvers for you to be able to add veteran help. Because what I think people are forgetting about in this conversation are 2 things. NFL teams, all of them, all 32, need a certain amount of finances to pool for when players get injured. Not if, but when. Because there is always a scenario where a player will get hurt and you need money to be able to go out and sign a replacement to make this easier. Sometimes it can be a practice squad player, but there are also financial implications associated with that. Not just the injured player pool, but also you need money for your practice squad, and you still have 3 of the 8 rookies in this 2021 class that have not yet signed their contracts. So before you get ahead of yourself, before you tell me Melvin Ingram, Justin Houston, Zach Ertz, all of these other players who you've had your heart set on, don't get greedy. You got Julio Jones, and Ryan Tannehill and John Robinson work together to give you the finances necessary to do that. But don't forget about the rest of the things that are necessary for an NFL team to function. It can't all go to veteran players that you want to sign in free agency. You have to keep in mind this pool money for injured players and the practice squad and the rookies who have yet to sign. We're going to continue this conversation, and we're going to talk about compensation that the Titans have coming in their future that will make you feel even better. If you're not already feeling great about the Julio Jones trade, Eric Galko is going to join us coming up next. He'll make you feel even better about what the Titans may have coming up on the horizon. That's what's up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
J. Mart and Ramon. One of them made it to the top. The other, well...
All I'm telling you, one of us made it to the top and the other didn't. Where the heck is that kid's now? I mean, right next to you in this same studio.
J. Mart and Ramon. Tomorrow morning from 6 to 10.
104.5 The Zone.
now that the Titans have A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. What's it been like to try and organize and put on events like the Shrine Bowl in the middle of all of the stuff, COVID-19, everything that's been done to various college football and the NFL offseason? We had Jim Nagy on the show, and he's kind of walked us through what the Senior Bowl has looked like. But what's it been like from your perspective?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And Jim's a friend of mine and a competitor. The Shrine Bowl's goal is to kind of reaffirm, if you know the history, it's been around for 98 years, and for a long time it was kind of the premier event in the off season, and we're excited to kind of bring that back. But certainly, even now we're still feeling the effects of COVID impacts on evaluating players preparing for the college season and working with NFL teams. And it's funny, talking with scouts and people around the league, even they're not sure, are we still doing Zoom calls? Can I go to your facility at college? What are you guys doing? So it's a lot of walking on eggshells still for depending on which state you're going to. But I think from an event standpoint, we're excited to hopefully, knock on wood, by January to kind of be back in a normal state. We're planning that way, and I think kind of planning for a non-COVID impacting event, and an event like the Shrine Bowl and the All-Star Game circuit in general, that is, as we saw last year, so crucial to these NFL teams, meeting with players, seeing these guys after the season, comparing these players to each other across conferences, across levels of football. It's so important. So for us, it's been refreshing to not plan for COVID protocols. And I've been talking to a lot of college and NFL personnel. They're excited as well to not be wearing masks potentially, but also more importantly, not worrying about vaccinations and all that stuff by the time September, October comes around, and certainly January in the All-Star Game circuit, we should be back to normal. So it's been refreshing planning accordingly.
Well, what's been the biggest hindrance that all of this has brought about? And then has anything about it, understanding that I don't want to call it just an inconvenience that COVID has been to all of our lives, but is there anything about what COVID has brought about, the different processes that we're all having to go through, that's made your guys' job more efficient?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the biggest thing. I've talked to probably a quarter of the league's general managers, along with a handful of scouts and personnel directors the last even month or so, since kind of, coming aboard with the Shrine Bowl. And I've asked that same question is, hey, what did you learn last year that you can maybe do moving forward? And one of those is, hey, we've seen the value, the limitations, but also the value of Zoom calls and having our staff talk to these players, after they declare for the draft, after they finish their college eligibility, but before the process. So I think teams have seen that, hey, what happens when you have to kind of scale back your access? And I think we'll see more NFL general managers and personnel directors talk to players before seeing them at an event, and that way their time when they're in person is even more efficient and more valuable. We can kind of get the generalities out of the way over Zoom and over conference calls, which we learned this year via Zoom. But now I know every GM, every scout I've talked to is dying to start talking to these athletes in person,
right,
at these events or during the draft process, because they didn't have that last year. And I think last year it hurt a lot of players at smaller schools and with less opportunities because teams were more risk averse. So I know NFL GMs and scouts are chomping at the bit to have more one-on-one interaction and valuable one-on-one interaction with players.
Eric Galko of the East-West Shrine Bowl is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Eric, why is A.J. Brown and Julio Jones now the best wide receiver tandem in football?
It is. That's a great way to phrase the question, because I think it really is unquestioning, especially on a 1-2 punch. You could argue Tampa with their third being Antonio Brown is pretty impressive as well. But I think really what Julio Jones and A.J. Brown bring, along with the identity of the Titans offense, is physicality at all three levels, right? You've got Derrick Henry at the first level, who's going to make linebackers, defensive linemen in the box hesitate, make the perimeters for outside receivers, screen passes more available, because Derrick Henry can win in the box, the physical running back, A.J. Brown, a fantastic deep player, but I think now with Julio Jones, he's going to dominate physicality-wise with corners, nickel corners when he plays in the slot, safeties, and really put fear in those short area routes. And now you have Julio Jones on top of that, who's going to stretch vertically. The fact that this team can kind of give it to all three of those outstanding weapons whenever they're in one-on-one opportunities, right? 7-man box, run it with Henry. One-on-one with A.J. Brown, give me a hitch route. Julio Jones, one-on-one, go vertical. It just allows for anybody else to step up, whether that's a backup running back, whether that's Josh Reynolds in the slot. Those guys are going to have every opportunity that, as long as Ryan Tannehill and his kind of next year with the Titans organization, once he kind of has a chance to kind of get a feel for all these guys' strengths, he's been able to pick his spots so well, and it's going to open up opportunities for Reynolds and other players in this offense comfortably. But again, Tannehill with 7 men in the box or one-on-one with A.J. Brown or Julio Jones, he knows he's got a great option at the points on the board.
There's been so much talk about Ryan Tannehill and what he is or what he may not be since him coming to Tennessee and obviously the first part of his career in Miami. From an objective scout's standpoint, what do you see when you look at Ryan Tannehill as a quarterback?
I think Ryan Tannehill still has areas he can still improve, which I think is the most exciting part about a guy who's been in the league for so long. I think we're still seeing him kind of come out maybe the limitations that were there in Miami. And I think what Tannehill brings is he is a very effective, composed game manager, works very well off play action, attacks the middle part of the field with confidence, great accuracy, great leading his receivers on midfield throws to work downfield. Very, very efficient there, on top of having the big arm and, of course, the mobility to work outside the pocket. And I think a lot of times we look at one or the other with quarterbacks. Are you a game manager or are you a plus athlete? And certainly Ryan Tannehill is not going to be Josh Allen or Aaron Rodgers or Pat Mahomes outside the pocket, but he's got the arm talent to break the pocket off play action and work on a double move 60, 70 yards downfield. He's got the ability to just stay in the pocket when Derrick Henry's playing really well, not make mistakes, and take advantage of one-on-one opportunities. So I think the efficiency of Ryan Tannehill last year for sure in Tennessee showed that, hey, if you put weapons around him, he not only will take care of the football, but he will make those guys better once the offense is balanced. So I think adding Julio Jones to a team that didn't even need him to be more efficient and be more successful is going to allow Ryan Tannehill to be that game manager. But also I think we're going to see a lot more improvisation plays and big plays from Tannehill because he has that in him. And he showed that at times last year, and he'll have every more opportunity to do that this year with Julio Jones on the outside.
When you say the words game manager, I feel like people just generally, because that's a label that's been assigned to many, many quarterbacks, but I think there's a different perception among fans and among scouts. Can you kind of clarify what you mean by game manager? Because I think at least from my perspective, Eric, that the term game manager is a compliment to a player like Ryan Tannehill.
Absolutely. For example, I wouldn't consider Josh Allen, who's one of the bright young stars at quarterback, a game manager. I think with Josh Allen, you're going out there and every fourth or fifth drive might lead to a play that you're holding your breath on. I think with Tannehill, you're not going to have many of those situations or really any of those situations at all. So in the NFL, if your team has talent like A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, and Derrick Henry, you want to be a game manager 90% of the plays because as long as your offensive coordinator or your coaching staff can put you in position, you're going to put up 20, 27, 30 points in a game. I think for Tannehill, him knowing that and playing within himself, he's got the talent to, again, he's not quite Josh Allen, but he's got that type of talent to work outside the pocket, to make plays when they're not there, to be a running threat as well. But he knows, hey, Julio Jones is a better runner than I am. Let me get him the ball, right? A.J. Brown can break more tackles than me. Let me get him the ball in the right spot to work after catch. So, no, I think in college, game manager is kind of a negative word. In the NFL, especially if you're on a playoff team, you want to manage your offense here and there and then occasionally take those chances or work off a play action boot and get out in space and make a big play only a few times a game. But there are very few NFL quarterbacks that can actually manage a game and make the offensive players they have successful, understand when there's 8 in the box, I've got to go to this route and this concept. When it's 7 in the box or 6 in the box, hey, I've got to audible this play to Derrick Henry. Those type of managerial decisions are very valuable for a team with this much talent, with this offensive line play for sure. So I think it's a positive standpoint. But again, he's a game manager. He's a better version, I think, of a Kirk Cousins in that kind of game manager role with way more talent and way more upside. And again, I think we'll see a lot more of that upside this year with the kind of vertical weapons they have now.
Eric Galko of the East-West Shrine Bowl is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Make sure you throw him a follow at Eric Galko on Twitter.
So, Eric, what is your opinion of the narrative that if Derrick Henry is not on, Ryan Tannehill can't carry the Titans? And does that change any with Julio Jones now in the conversation?
I think it does, for sure. I think the fact that they've got 3 receivers who are, A.J. Brown's not quite 6'1", I'm not sure, but he plays a lot bigger than that as well. But having Julio, A.J., and Josh Reynolds as a quarterback, especially in that offense where you want to run a lot of play action, having bigger receivers is going to have bigger throwing windows where you can pick up first downs very easily. So I think we're going to see a lot of hitch and midfield routes in this Titan offense if Derrick Henry's not going well, because you post up any one of Julio, A.J. and Josh Reynolds in the midfield, they're going to get you 7-8 yards depending on where the defense is. So Tannehill has shown he can do that early on in his career at Miami. He showed that a bit last year when he had to, and certainly Derrick Henry had a fantastic year ago. But no, if Derrick Henry's out for 2 or 3 games, this offense can kind of pivot a little bit, use their running backs to be more screen, flare, outside players, open up that middle part of the field for A.J. Brown and Josh Reynolds, and then whenever that defense gets comfortable, attack vertically with Julio Jones. But I think that trio of wide receivers is going to be really impressive. The only caveat, the only question is, how can this offense adjust without Jonnu Smith? And really a tight end right now, they may feel capable to be that 5 to 7 yard plus blocking tight end who can also get out in space. And I think they'll miss Smith and they'll miss that kind of impact tight end. But certainly this offense will adapt a little bit and try to find ways to get Ryan Tannehill more involved outside the pocket, being more mobile and utilizing those top 2 receivers.
Eric, I feel like the audience has a preconceived notion of what a slot receiver should look like, and that always comes up in conversations when discussing what pieces an offense, not just the Titans, but an offense needs to add. Josh Reynolds played more snaps in the slot than any Titans wide receiver on the roster last year. Is that the best utilization of him, or am I pigeonholing him because it's such a matchup-driven game?
No, I think it's both. I think he's going to be best in this offense with this receiver crew for sure, playing in the slot. I think we'll see some A.J. Brown in the slot as well, especially on a matchup when they're going against maybe a lesser nickel and really take advantage there. But why you want a guy like Josh Reynolds as a bigger slot receiver is, again, you've got Derrick Henry in the backfield. When you have a smaller, quicker running back who's going to be working more on the outside, the C gap or running outside pitch plays, toss plays, stretch plays, you've got to have a slot receiver who can take advantage in the short area in the middle of the field. Vice versa, when you have a big power back like that, he's going to strike fear in those linebackers and defensive lines inside the C gap, B gap, A gap. And that's why you want a receiver who's got a bit more length in the slot to take advantage of maybe those nickel corners, those safeties who are kind of leaning towards the box, give your receiver a little bit more length and have that guy be more of a jump ball player. And that's what Josh Reynolds can be. So play action and those quicker routes, you're going to have these safeties and these linebackers always cheating inside. Having a bigger physical receiver in the slot is going to allow not only for better matchups, but Ryan Tannehill a lot more wingspan to work with. We want to get that ball out quickly. So really your slot receiver really depends on what your identity is in the run game, in my opinion. That's why Josh Reynolds is a perfect fit here. A smaller guy like an Adam Humphries is certainly still a valuable slot player you can use in other ways, but he's going to be a little bit duplicitous in terms of how defenses want to attack that Titans run game. So I think this team wants to be long on the perimeter and give Ryan Tannehill a lot of wingspan to make plays, because certainly every player on that defense inside the hashes is going to be focused on Derrick Henry whenever he's on the field.
Eric, you quote tweeted Marcus Mosher on the day that the trade for Julio Jones was made, talking about compensatory picks that the Titans will get, in theory, back for Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith. If you could kind of outline your thought process on why this Julio Jones deal is made even a little better based on the compensation the Titans will get post June 1st for the players that they let walk in free agency.
Yeah, I think for one, we can all agree for the next 3 years, and they both have 3-year contracts, we'd rather Julio Jones than Corey Davis. At least the next 2 years, I think Julio Jones can be just fine moving forward. But
there's
I think
one Western Michigan fan who's shaking his fist at you right now, Eric. That's how that's going down. Other than him, you're right.
Outside of him and Kalamazoo, I think we can all agree that maybe Julio is going to be better than Corey Davis for at least, 2/3 of that 3-year contract. But I think the real interesting part is, hey, they've lost Jonnu Smith and Corey Davis. Both of those players are, I would expect them to be, if not thirds, definitely 4th-round compensatory players. And again, compensatory picks means, hey, the NFL has a rule where if you lose a top player in free agency and he gets paid X amount of dollars, you get a pick based off that as well. The only caveat is Bud Dupree and his contract will likely cancel out. I would expect Jonnu Smith to be canceled out. So that means they're going to get a top 3, maybe a 4th. I think it's going to be a 3rd-round pick for Corey Davis in the 2022 draft. So in essence, the Tennessee Titans didn't trade for Julio Jones and give up a 2nd-round pick and the additional pick as well. They actually basically just flopped picks about 50, maybe 75 spots in the draft on day 2 to upgrade from Corey Davis to Julio Jones. And in my opinion, when you look at that perspective, you didn't really lose a 2nd-round pick. You just upgraded a player and move down in the draft a little bit. And again, I think Titans fans will very much appreciate the fact that, hey, we upgraded that receiver, and we maybe lost a guarantee starter with a late second-round pick. But if our team can draft as well as they have in the last few drafts, we'll get a good player there in that third or fourth round compensatory pick as well.
He is Eric Galko of the East-West Shrine Bowl. He's been kind enough to give us some of his time this morning. Eric, thank you so much for the information. You've made us a lot smarter today.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks. Talk to you soon.
Eric Galko there with a lot of good nuggets there for Titans fans on the compensatory pick situation, on the best utilizations of Josh Reynolds. It sounds like they got an upgrade in the slot.
The Josh Reynolds thing is fascinating because that's as much as we've had somebody dive into how this impacts him in this offense.
Right. Solid guest, says Josh Stone, 1468. Need him back. Apparently, while he wakes and bakes at Stokely Hall, he's enjoying some football analysis. We'll get into a little bit of what we'll expand on what Eric said, because John Robinson was on J Mart and Ramon this morning. If you missed that interview, you can check out the podcast J Mart and Ramon in your favorite podcast app. But he kind of spoke to some of the stuff that Eric was talking about, and I think that would be good context for our audience to be able to have as well. We'll do that coming up next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
The Titans have made it very clear to the entire NFL. They're going for it this season by bringing in Julio Jones and his 848 career receptions to Music City.
I'm excited to add Julio to the football team. He's excited to be a part of what we got going on here in Nashville.
Talk about it here on your home for Titans football. 104.5 The Zone.
This summer, take a trip to where it's hot, 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 and find yourself on white hot sands beneath a flaming hot sun in
It's been some, I don't want to call it speculation. I think Peter Schrager just put it out there as if it was fact, but there was no real confirmation on the idea that John Robinson was on Percy Priest Lake when he got the deal done for Julio Jones. This was John Robinson speaking on that deal this morning on Good Morning Football.
Yeah. So it kind of started the last couple of weeks. There had been some discussion back and forth, about, what's the compensation, what was their timeline for trying to make a move on it. It really kind of picked up Saturday morning. We kind of had some discussions, and my family happened to be in town. And we had scheduled to go out on the pontoon boat and kind of float around, and kids were going to slide and splash around. So made a few phone calls from the boat on Saturday afternoon. And, thank goodness there's cell service out on Percy Priest. And then we had some more phone calls that evening after we got in from the lake. And then really Sunday morning is when it kind of finalized at another favorite spot of mine, Pinewood Kitchen out in Pinewood, Tennessee. It's probably about an hour west of here. Great friend of ours, Nee McCormick, owns it. And we were out having brunch, phone ring again, and we really crystallized the deal at now historic Pinewood Kitchen, the place where the trade for Julio Jones went down.
Where the hell is Pinewood, Tennessee?
All the free shout-outs from J-Rob.
615-737-1045 if you want to get involved with the radio show this morning. What kind of special hell must football people live in that you can't even take a Saturday or a Sunday morning rather to go and rent a pontoon boat? And the decision making of Percy Priest I still question, because there's too many empty plastic half gallons of vodka and probably needles floating around in Percy Priest Lake to let your children go splash in the polluted waters there. Although I do hear that there are some nice spots on Percy Priest. But on top of that, I'm trying to find out where Pinewood, Tennessee is. Pinewood Kitchen. We're giving it free love. John Robinson gave it free love. Now historic Pinewood Kitchen. You better hope it's historic.
Put up a marker.
Yeah.
That place is going to be loaded this weekend.
Gary Todd on Twitter says, I told you J-Rob was on Percy Priest on a pontoon boat. Man, you didn't know either. Shut up. 615-737-1045 is how you get involved. Now, Eric Galko, who joined us, I thought Eric was really, really good. There was a lot of good information from a schematic standpoint, from a personnel standpoint, and from a just general NFL dealings standpoint on what goes in to one of these acquisitions, one of these trades, how you can go about manipulating it, also taking into consideration the compensatory draft pick situation that you have for teams who lose more free agents than they gain. This would be the case for the Titans. Over the Cap right now has the Titans looking at a 4th-round pick, given that they lost 5 players that qualified for this and gained 4. Before June 1st, when the deadline for such things expired. But John spoke about as Eric called it, a pick flop situation that kind of it takes the teeth out of the future 2023 pick that John had attached to this deal. This was John Robinson this morning on J. Mart and Ramon.
I had to continue to have some discussions and back and forth there with the 2023 stuff is, in our world, sweetener, to kind of sweeten it up a little bit. It was pretty important for me not to lose a hard pick in 23, so that's kind of a mechanism that teams use. I've used it before, where you're flopping picks. You're just kind of, one round for another round, so you're moving draft spots and you're not necessarily losing out on a potential player.
So it makes you feel a little better. I mean, I don't know how you could feel better about the Julio Jones situation right now. But this is something that is going to soften even the compensation blow that you of the picks that you did give up in that deal. It certainly plays very much into the Titans' hands. We're getting tweets from people in Hickman County, where apparently Pinewood, Tennessee is, Pinewood Kitchen. Mason Rochelle says Pinewood Kitchen is in Hickman County, my hometown.
Hickman County.
What's the I'm trying to figure Hickman County.
Right next to Dixon County.
Is it?
45, 50 miles west of here.
What is that laugh behind you? I can hear it through your microphone.
That is 30-something-year-old child Ramon Foster.
What is he giggling about?
I never know what he's giggling about.
It's very loud. I can hear it through your open mic in the production studio.
By the way, John has called in from Murfreesboro. He keeps falling off the line, but to let us know that there was an event going on at Percy Priest, like an air show at Percy Priest Lake. So he came in to staunchly defend Percy Priest.
The Great Tennessee Air Show, I believe it's called. Well, that's nice. Now I need to know what the best menu item at Pinewood Kitchen is. Should we take a field trip?
Let's take a gander.
After Julio Jones' first 150-yard, 2-touchdown game, should we celebrate with a nice meal in Pinewood, Tennessee at Pinewood Kitchen? I think that would be nice. 615-737-1045. There is so tomorrow we are going to have the opportunity to go back out to St. Thomas Sports Park for OTAs. The expectation is that Julio Jones will not be there. He will be back for mandatory minicamp. But the conversation continues about when we will see or what we will see from this Titans rookie class. Because at this point, Caleb Farley still not practicing, still working through his rehabilitation process. Whether A.J. Brown or even Derrick Henry will be out on the field for this portion of the voluntary, keyword voluntary, off-season. I think the thing that I'm most curious about is the rookie corners, because it's not just about Caleb Farley at this point. It's about Elijah Molden as well, who has done some things in a, as Vrabel would call it, limited capacity. There is no requirement for injury reports right now. But I do. People are tweeting us the link for Pinewood Kitchen and Mercantile. So it's it's not just a kitchen. Now I've got to pull up the menu.
Let's take it easy on the free shout-outs.
What? What do you mean?
By the way, I don't know. Do you have First Take on the TV in there?
I would if for whatever reason it went into power saver mode.
I'm looking at it, and kind of the super under the screen is Kendrick Perkins, the Titans will win the Super Bowl in 2021.
What? Listen to me. This is the third day in a row that I've pulled up ESPN.com and the Titans have been on the top headlines. The biggest news, the Tennessee Titans. What is this? What is this world that I'm living in? Now you have Kendrick Perkins. I love that it's Kendrick Perkins. Can Kendrick Perkins be our Titans guest analyst for the year? I think that would make me very, very happy. NBA, was Kendrick Perkins a star NBA player?
I have no clue.
I mean, he's kind of in this weird place where the evolution of basketball kind of changed all of a sudden on Kendrick Perkins and players like Kendrick Perkins. But I love that Kendrick Perkins is out here on First Take giving Titans analysis. What a time to be alive. We go to John. Is he calling us? John, are you on Percy Priest Lake? Where are you calling us from right now? John, you're on the air. Okay.
All right, that's John's third strike.
Time.
That's the third time he's called and dropped. We're done with John. He's upset at the way we're talking about Percy Priest. I'm trying to give him a chance to defend his stance, but he keeps dropping off.
Okay, so this could have been problematic, because if John is in fact calling us from Percy Priest Lake, then the cell phone reception is not as good as John Robinson led us to believe.
Story of the day.
Can you imagine if John Robinson is on the 1 yard line, just getting ready to cross over and score and get the golden Julio Jones touchdown trade? All right, John Robinson's on the 1, and the cell phone reception at Percy Priest, whether it is in fact filled with needles and plastic half gallons or not, as John continues to try and call in and defend himself. Get a better phone line, John. But can you imagine if cell phone signal was the reason that the Tennessee Titans did not end up in possession of Julio Jones?
Like if it just breaks up and the Falcons mistakenly think he's offering like 3 first-round picks?
That is delightful for me to think about. But only because it ended up happening, and only because we all get the benefit, myself included, because business is good when there are star players on the NFL team that you cover. When we come back, though, it is time for the thing that we do each and every Wednesday. It is time for the dumbest thing in sports this week. 615-737-1045 is how you chime in with your nominee. 615-737-1045. The dumbest thing in sports this week. I'm Buck Reising. Not the dumbest thing in sports this week. This is 1045 The Zone.
Everything Titans. Your home for Titans football and the flagship for Titans radio. 104.5 The Zone.
is this?
That's bullshit.
What the hell? Give me some more now.
Something so mind-numbingly idiotic that you just want to get it off your chest.
Dumber than a second coat of paint.
Some idiot. You are really dumb. For real.
It's the dumbest thing in sports this week on the Buck Reising Show.
You don't know anything. You don't know squat, you stupid idiot.
Thank you, Root. 615-737-1045. 615-737-1045. Load them up. Lucas, I will let you start the proceedings with your dumbest thing in sports this week before we go to the phones.
Mine stems from something that happened in early April. We'll go back to what LSU head baseball coach Paul Mainieri said after the second SEC series when they were swept by Tennessee earlier this year.
There wasn't a huge crowd at Tennessee. It was an extremely hostile environment.
Yeah.
They were nasty.
You could hear it.
Nasty.
You could hear it over the TV.
I mean, they were into Trey Morgan's head. I mean, they were on him from the moment he walked onto that field. And, I mean, it was a difficult situation with the umpiring. There were a lot of calls that went against, kids, and they were having to deal with that. There was the other team was not handling things with a lot of class, quite frankly. And, it was an environment that those kids had been in for the very first time. And it was very difficult. Listen, even though there wasn't it
was really hard.
It's so hard.
It was so mean. So that was Paul Mainieri in early April.
And for those who lack the context, Paul Mainieri is the LSU baseball coach.
Right.
The Vols will host a super regional when they will again see the LSU Tigers.
And Paul Mainieri has already announced his retirement after this season comes to an end. Now, Baton Rouge radio host and former LSU football player T-Bob Habert, who will be on the show on Friday.
A-Bear, you hillbilly.
A-Bear, I am so sorry.
A-Bear.
He will be on the show Friday. We can address this with him. Tweeted, he brought this video back up because it was on his radio show. Shout out to all the Tennessee baseball fans driving these views up. Can't wait to watch Paul get nasty with you this weekend. Revenge is a dish. Best served purple and gold.
Oh, the homerism.
I love a good internet troll, what the Canes did to the Preds the other week.
Yeah.
And T-Bob's been all over Vol Twitter, which I appreciate. I think it's funny. But the cringe from Revenge is a dish. Best served purple and gold. That's tough. But can't wait to watch Paul get nasty with you this weekend. The guy that was whining about college students being too nasty and the umpires not calling in favor of his team, getting in his player's head. Yeah, that guy that we just heard is going to get nasty with Tennessee and Tony Vitello. That's my dumbest thing in sports this week.
Let me hear it, Bruce. We got Bruce back there?
Oh, yeah. You're an idiot.
Yeah, it's okay. T-Bob A-Bear will join us on Friday before the Vols get ready to begin their super regional. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in with your dumbest thing in sports this week. I will nominate something that happened yesterday for my dumbest thing in sports this week. Julio Jones. Finally, the number announcement. The Titans put it out on their social media. He will wear, A.J. Brown took to Twitter, said, I tried to offer him 11, the number that he has worn throughout the entirety of his career, and he wouldn't take it. So instead, Julio Jones opts to wear number 2, which is exciting. It's the first player under the new rules that the Titans have on the roster that chose to take advantage of the fact that wide receivers and other positions can now wear single digits. So Julio Jones will wear the number 2. Now, my thoughts about the number 2 in the Titans uniform font are that it looks more like a Z than a number 2. So maybe he's going to be the Z receiver in the Titans offense, but I digress. The awarding of the number and my thoughts on single-digit numbers in the NFL, notwithstanding, this drove me insane. Not because of what Julio Jones chose to wear and not because it was a single digit, but because of the reaction after the fact. Now, the most famous number 2, probably in the Titans era, is Rob Baronis. Of course, the great kicker who passed away in 2014, tragic accident, the way that it went down. And there has been so many opportunities for players to wear the number 2, and it just hasn't happened until last year. But the reaction to Julio Jones wearing number 2 is that, he should have had more respect for Rob Baronis. Shame on the organization for allowing Julio Jones to take the number of the great Rob Baronis. And I would respect the opinions of those people if the organization had chosen to retire Rob Baronis' number in his memory. I don't respect those people's opinion because I saw none of that when the number 2 was worn last year in week 17 by our white whale, by the thick kicker, by Sam Sloman. The spirit of Rob Baronis flowed through him, and even though he doinked it off the uprights, it bounced in for the Tennessee Titans to be able to kick a game-winning field goal and ultimately come away with their first division title since 2008. All of you whiners who are out there complaining that Rob Baronis' number is now being worn by Julio Jones, if the team felt the same way, I would understand it. If the number was off limits, like number 1 is for A.J. Brown, I would totally sympathize. But it's not. It's nice that Julio Jones is going to be able to wear it. If they do something to honor Rob Baronis' memory in that regard, wonderful. Of course, we want to respect Rob Baronis and the loved ones and family that he left behind. It was a horrible thing that happened to the kicker, Rob Baronis, back in 2014. But I'm not going to hold it over Julio Jones' head like he should immediately recognize the significance of the number 2 to the Tennessee Titans organization and to the person who really not even last wore it. Because Sam Sloman won it last year. Everybody relax. That's the dumbest thing in sports.
Fair weather, idiot.
That's what I'm saying. Like, complete recency biased.
Maybe because he's a kicker, he gets a pass.
Yeah.
Sam Sloman gets a pass over Julio Jones.
Yeah. Sam Sloman is the exception to the rule.
You wanted Julio, you got him. Let him wear whatever the hell he wants.
Nobody cares if Sam Sloman won it, but when Julio gets it, the entire internet loses its mind. Scott Bowen on Facebook Live says the PGA telling John Rahm that he had tested positive for COVID-19 on live TV.
Yeah,
I didn't see that.
They told him, on the fairway, and he basically got escorted off. And he was playing pretty well, too. He might have been in the lead. I might be wrong about that, but he was definitely contending.
Are you kidding me?
Nope. He got escorted off, mid-hole.
That's horrendous.
And Jim Nantz on the call said, as he was getting taken back to the clubhouse, folks, I got to be honest, I have absolutely no idea what's happening here.
Jesus Christ. When we come back, Darius will lead us off with his dumbest thing in sports this week. 615-737-1045 if you want to jump in on the phone lines as well to nominate something. I don't know if you're going to be able to top John Rahm. That may be the winner this week. But if you'd like to give it your best shot, Darius will lead us off on the other side. It's the dumbest thing in sports this week. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
The guys like to talk, and you like to listen. Blaine and Mickey, this afternoon, 1 to 3 on 104.5 The Zone.
DraftKings Sportsbook is not only my favorite sportsbook, but also America's top-rated sportsbook app. I love using DraftKings Sportsbook because it's easy to navigate, has plenty of instructions for new bettors, and nearly limitless ways to get in on all the action. My friends and family have been loving DraftKings Sportsbook, and I know you will too. When you log into DraftKings Sportsbook, they have great offers on baseball, hockey, NBA playoffs, and so much more all week long. Download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the promo code WGFX when you sign up to turn $1 into $100 in free credits. Bet on the basketball team of your choice to win their next game, and if they do, you will claim $100 in free credits. Must be 21 and present in Tennessee to bet. Wager paid out in site credits. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text the Tennessee Red Line 1-800-889-9789.
There's never been a better time to find out why BetMGM is the king of sportsbooks. Hey, it's Lucas Panzica from the Buck Reising Show and Blaine and Mickey.
4-5 is how you get involved with the proceedings. We've been doing the dumbest thing in sports this week. Lucas has nominated. What was your nominee again, Lucas? I've forgotten.
T-Bob Hebert.
Oh, that's right.
Who we will have on Friday.
Yes. So Lucas's nominee will join us on the radio show on Friday. Mine is the people complaining about Julio Jones wearing Rob Baronis' number and forgetting that Sam Sloman wore it last year and not making a big deal out of it. So we go to Darius, who has been waiting patiently. He's in Nashville. He's got the dumbest thing in sports this week. Go ahead, Darius.
Hey, Buck, how you doing today? Y'all doing good?
Doing just fine, brother. Better than we deserve.
All right. So the dumbest thing in sports, it happened exactly 7 days ago, so I know some people forgot about it. But this is kind of shade on Bally Sports for saying that the Grizzlies were going to play but proceeded to have the Atlanta Hawks on for the post game. Even though the Grizzlies got murdered, I understand. But I'm still a fan. So I would like to watch my team play one last game before I cry. So y'all have a great day. Appreciate the call, Buck.
Man, Darius, that infuriated me. It was about a week ago, but it still falls within the bounds of the last week. If you want to nominate one, 615-737-1045. They haven't done that all year long. All year long, Bally Sports. And it's the name of Bally Sports is the only real quibble that I have with it. You know, the broadcast looks a little different when you watch the Preds or the Grizzlies games after they changed over from Fox Sports Tennessee. But they have not done that all year because, of course, they have like the Bally Sports South channel, and then they have the Bally Sports South alternate channel in case the Grizzlies and the Preds or the Grizzlies and the Hawks or the Preds and the Hawks are playing at the same time. I got so mad because I wanted to watch the Grizzlies game. It was the elimination game against the Utah Jazz. Utah Jazz, I believe they got game one last night in their Western Conference semifinal series, if I am not mistaken. Maybe you fact check me on that. I couldn't stay awake.
You said the Jazz won last night?
I think the Jazz won.
Yeah, they did. They beat the Clippers last night.
Okay. I tried to stay awake, but I fell asleep. 615-737-1045 is how you get involved. But I got so angry. I got so angry at Bally Sports because even if they were getting blown out. Like I had the score. I was getting the score on Twitter. I don't know how everybody else was able to watch it. And I don't, I pay for every damn sports channel under the sun, but I just didn't happen to have NBA TV, which is the one place where I could have gone to get it. And I didn't want to pay extra money just to watch the Grizzlies get blown out in an elimination game. But I'm sitting there watching. Who's the Hawks head coach? Not Lloyd Pierce. Lloyd Pierce is the one that got fired. I think it's Nate McMillan. Nate McMillan took over for the Hawks, and they've had an exceptional record. I'm sitting there watching a Nate McMillan press conference when the Grizzlies are on. They're playing. They haven't done the full Hawks post game while the Grizzlies are on after the Hawks play all year long. But in the playoffs, they chose to do it. Pissed me off. 615-737-1045 is how you nominate the dumbest thing in sports this week. Many of you have tweeted as well. We'll get to some of those here in just a second. But Chris is in Kentucky. He's got a nominee for this week's dumbest thing in sports. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I heard that the Olympic IOC has voted in breakdancing as a Summer Olympic sport in 2024. I think that's asinine.
Brevity is the soul of wit. Thank you for the call, Chris. Lucas, can you fact check him on that? There's no way in hell breakdancing is an Olympic sport. Can that be so? Lucas is doing some due diligence if you're watching right now on Zone TV because we want to make sure we fact check it before we rip it.
That's going to happen.
It's going to happen?
Yeah.
Give me the details. You have an article in front of you.
ESPN breakdancing gets Olympic status to debut at Paris Games in 2024.
What the hell?
Yeah, it became an official Olympics. Oh, this broke in December, actually.
Okay, so this has been around for a while. So what are we going to see? Are the Jabberwockies going to be a part of Team USA? Are you kidding me with this? Now, I guess if you're making the argument for
also skateboarding, sport climbing, and surfing was also added.
I think those are all fair. Breakdancing, okay, so like the argument for breakdancing, if you're going to make an argument, is that gymnastics are in the Olympics and gymnastics have a floor routine component of the gymnastics competition that you can medal in. Now, the floor routine is in itself kind of breakdancing, but this is just straight up like a breakdancing competition.
Well, and the ESPN article says, quote, breakdancing will be called breaking at the Olympics as it was in the 1970s by hip-hop pioneers in the United States.
Oh, don't hip-hop pioneers. What are we, is it? We got Run DMC in the Oregon Trail. What do you mean pioneer? I mean, I understand what they're saying by pioneers, but that just conjures a little bit more ridiculous image. If you're going to laugh, by the way, keep your microphone off so I'm not just making jokes by myself. And people get pissed when I laugh at my own jokes. I'm laughing because Lucas's laugh, you can't hear it. It's infuriating to me. See there, I did it again. 615-737-1045 is how you nominate the dumbest thing in sports this week. Lucas, what are the people saying on Twitter?
Anna has Colin Cowherd's terrible take and reaction video.
Do we have that for people?
I can track it down.
Let's play that for people because I do think this is a fair nominee. This is something that Colin Cowherd is an artist at. The art of infuriating people, even when he hasn't spent a lick of time on the Tennessee Titans, probably in the 5 years that I've spent covering them. And I'm not one of these people who's out here clout chasing from the national media just to hear the name Titans uttered on Fox Sports or ESPN or NBC or CBS or anywhere else. Like, I don't get caught up in that the way that so many of you seem to. And I understand. You want to turn on your favorite sports outlet. You want to hear your team being talked about. That's why you got us. That's why you got us, why you got A to Z Sports. It's why we are hyper-local in that way. So we can provide you the coverage that you're not going to get elsewhere. But Colin Cowherd just lit a flame under all of your guys' butts the day that Julio Jones got traded to the Titans. This is the audio courtesy of Colin Cowherd's Twitter account.
So to Sunday morning, Julio Jones, Atlanta, traded to the Tennessee Titans essentially for a second-round pick. My prediction, watch the overreaction by the media. Julio Jones, at this point in his career, still great, but has a lot of injuries. Tennessee whiffed on their first-round pick last year, drafted a corner this year that's had multiple back surgeries. They have huge secondary issues, offensive line issues, and a regrettable pass rush. I like Mike Vrabel a lot, but there's a reason the Colts should be favored in this division. Colts have a better defense. Colts have a great coach. Colts have a significantly better offensive line. Listen, the Titans lost Corey Davis. They go out and get Julio Jones. But Ryan Tannehill's played above himself the last 2 years. Why? Because he's had a great offensive coordinator who just jettisoned the Titans to become the Falcons head coach. You don't think coordinators matter? So you still have offensive line issues. You're kind of one-dimensional with, Derrick Henry essentially is the show. You stop Derrick Henry, force Ryan Tannehill to throw, it's not the same football team. It's a wide-open division outside of the Colts, who really are the best roster, best general manager, excellent coach, premier offensive line. But, Julio Jones is now filling the gap, and he's better than Corey Davis. But the idea this takes Tennessee to a special place, they're not Baltimore. They're not Baltimore. They're not Kansas City. They don't have Cleveland's roster. They're not Buffalo. They're not the Colts. The good news is Houston's in the division, so they won't finish last.
That's Colin Cowherd, man. It's the shot at the end. Houston's in the division, so the Titans won't finish last. What's Mad Dog Chris Russo think about what Colin Cowherd just had to say?
Say that to me. Say that to anybody. Say it to somebody.
Better watch it, Colin. We're gonna have callers coming in here, Paul Feinbaum style. You tell that Colin Cow turd. 615-737-1045. Look at Casey in the comments on YouTube trying to start a fight. He says, heard nothing but facts. They aren't built like the teams he named. Oh, goodness. 615-737-1045. Ron Slay, also in the chat on YouTube. He says, great shirt, Buck. Yeah, I'm wearing a Boom Boom Room shirt. I support my teammates. You know who doesn't support their teammates? Ron Slay. Ron, why you got to make the entire studio smell like hot wings and French fries? What are we doing here? And I don't even get any. You kidding me with this?
You weren't here.
There was a
So Ron Slay is a bad teammate for buying everybody wings yesterday afternoon.
Not me.
You weren't here.
I didn't get wings.
Neither did the morning guys. They're not complaining.
Where's Russo? I need Mad Dog.
What do you want from Mad Dog?
I want him.
There's a few.
Shut up. Stay low.
That's what I'm saying. Thank you. So which Mad Dog do you want? I don't know. Just pick one, Lucas. Help me. Help me do the show. I'll special order you some buck. No, no, Slay. This is not a guilt trip. I just don't want the studio. There was a fossilized French fry sitting under some papers on the console. Not in Slay's cubicle, okay? On the console, at the front of the console, where I sit.
Nothing wrong with the studio smelling like
I had to take 2 paper plates, I assumed that were left over from the wings, and I had to scrape the fossilized French fry off the console and throw it away in the trash can that's still filled with, 50 wings, none of which I got.
They were delicious and a great gesture by fantastic zone teammate Ron Slay.
I gotta deal with the smell, I gotta deal with the mess, and I don't even get the wings.
Will Bowling says dumbest thing in sports this week is Vanderbilt fans acting like the little brother to Tennessee in the one sport they can claim dominance.
Why is Will Bowling so bad at this? Help me understand. Aren't we supposed to be objective? And maybe it's not across the board, okay? Maybe it's not. Maybe there is room for, because like Brent Doherty, Tennessee sports fan. Dawn Davenport, Tennessee sports fan. Ron Slay, I'm talking like statewide. I'm not talking about like the University of Tennessee specifically. Like there is room. I can be objective, blowhard, journalist, gas bag, whatever the hell. And everybody else can be fans about it. There's nothing wrong with that. But Will Bowling is particularly disgusting with his homerism.
Well, he's going at Vandy fans for going at Tennessee fans for celebrating that Grand Slam walk-off. And that was the narrative, that Vandy fans went at Tennessee fans for that and then, in turn, celebrated a Vanderbilt Grand Slam the other night.
So, Danny Smiley says, God, you're such a whiner, Buck. Yeah, Danny, that's right. That's why they pay me, to whine.
Jim says opposing fans throwing projectiles at U.S. men's national team in the USA-Mexico game. That should have been my dumbest thing in sports this week, was Mexico's manager getting a red card for putting his arm around the referee during a video review.
That looks so uncomfortable. That looked so uncomfortable for the ref. What the hell was the Mexican coach doing?
It was so weird. It would be like if Mike Tomlin came up behind like Jerome Bogert while he's under the hood. Like, hey, pal, what are we looking at here?
You had to pick Jerome Bogert. The one that the Titans fans hate the most.
Comes to mind.
Oh, who the hell is Colin Clown Nerd, says Zachary W. Smith, when he ever
Zing.
mattered. Zing! You got him.
Diana Rossini.
Take that, Clown Nerd.
Diana Rossini of ESPN says dumbest thing in sports this week is her obsession with proving the parachute game in gym class was the worst day of the year.
I think Diana doesn't get the joke. Like, I think Diana just kind of... I think Diana kind of just lobbed up something that was, I don't know if she's had a rant about parachute day in gym class. You tried to explain this to me in the green room, and I wasn't quite following you.
Like it was a Twitter thing where people were talking about this was the best day of the year in gym. The big parachute game at elementary school. And her argument was, no, it's floor hockey. And it created this whole stir on Twitter. And so she's saying the dumbest thing in sports this week is her arguing that the parachute game. So it did happen this week. Argument did.
So she's spending valuable Twitter time. Yeah. Because God knows.
Valuable Twitter time arguing about the parachute game in elementary school.
I hate social media. I really do. 615-737-1045 is how you nominate your dumbest thing in sports this week. If parachute day was horrible, I agree, says Casey. I mean, I think parachute day was fun. Like, I don't understand I think Casey and Diana and those who would denounce the good name of Parachute Day are in the vast minority, the silent minority, when it comes to activities in gym class that everybody did or did not look forward to. Like, I'm trying to think of the thing that I hated in like grade, because that's not even grade school. That's like elementary school gym class where you're playing the parachute game. And I can't think of a game that I did not like. I didn't necessarily. I mean, I sucked at basketball, which is ironic because I'm from the state of Indiana, and that's all we cared about. So it was a great. I brought shame upon my family with how poor I was at basketball. But parachute day is easy. You got to be athletic to do parachute day.
I like the scooting day. You know those little like platforms with the 4 wheels you can scoot around on?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Which is ironic because you're a terrible driver. 615-737. No, I've seen it. 615-737-1045. Alex is in Nashville. He's got a dumbest thing in sports this week. Go ahead, Alex.
So my dumbest thing in sports is around Arthur Smith.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. Like and appreciate what he did mostly last year and the year before. But the dumbest thing in sports is the fact that the national media and a lot of Titans fans are making Arthur Smith out to be some offensive guru, especially the ones that didn't like the Julio Jones trade, is, oh, he's going to go die to Tennessee. They lost their offensive guru head coach. Halfway through his first year as an OC, oh, by the way, only 2 years as a play caller, halfway through, we were trying to run him out of town. Glad we didn't, but this notion that he's an offensive guru mastermind is ridiculous. Good play caller, used what he had, maximized the talent that he had, but an innovative offensive mind, don't know about all that.
Okay. I think Alex went a little extreme there because listen, Art did a great job with the Titans offense, and Alex was acknowledging that. I'm not trying to twist his words, but I do think you have to give a good chunk of credit to Art, right? Because that was the whole thing that Mike Mularkey not the whole thing, not the whole reason Mike Mularkey got fired, but a big part of that is he wouldn't move the hell on from Terry Robisky. Terry Robisky, who I remember standing next to him one day at practice while we're at it's not like a professional, I mean, I don't want to call it not professional, but we're just coming off the practice field. And I've got my recorder, and I'm talking to Terry Robisky because at that time the offense looked terrible. It was that would have been 2017, the Mularkey staff's last year. And they were really, really struggling. And he looked at us and said, us who were surrounding him at the time to talk to Terry Robisky, he said, yeah, 90% of the offense, 90% is predicated off Marcus Mariota's legs, not his arm. And maybe, Mularkey and Robisky might have known more about Marcus Mariota's deficiencies than anybody at the time. But 90% of the offense? I think Arthur Smith is getting so much praise because Alex, you've never had an offense like that before. Like, that's the best, highest scoring offense, I'm almost certain, in the history of Titans football.
Yes.
So you want to give him credit where credit is due, but I understand that should not be a knock on Tannehill, like so many people are holding it over Ryan Tannehill's head today, saying, oh, it's fraud. It's all Arthur Smith, and now he's the head coach of the Falcons, and the Titans aren't going to be worth a damn anymore.
A lot of people's dumbest thing in sports is also the Tannehill slander that has rained down since the Julio move.
I think that's reasonable. 615-737-1045. Curtis is in Hendersonville. He's got a dumbest thing in sports this week. Go ahead, Curtis.
Hey, okay, so first of all, I'm a Texans fan, and I've been a Texans fan since 2003.
Sure.
So my dumbest thing in sports this week, I guess it happened last week, is why the hell are we signing Rex Burkhead?
We have not even talked about this yet.
Like, what are we doing? I thought the idea was to step away from trying to be the Patriots of the South, and then we're going to just scoop Rex Burkhead.
Curtis, I'm telling you, this is the timing could not be better, and thank you for the call. 615-737-1045 if you want to jump in on the dumbest thing in sports this week. Lucas, a week removed from the Rex Burkhead signing, whipped like we're sitting in the green room, we're prepping for the show. Rex Burkhead has not even entered my mind in the better part of 7 days, all right? And Lucas whips around. I don't know where he saw it or why it just now came to his attention, but he goes, what the hell? What is this? What are the Texans doing signing Rex Burkhead? I'm like, buddy, that happened a week ago.
Oh, in my defense, it was 3 days. And an Ian Rappaport tweet that happened 3 days prior, this was on Monday, popped up on my timeline. For some reason, it got recirculated. And I had no idea until Monday that Rex Burkhead signed with the Texans.
So now how many running backs is that?
Let's go through them, shall we?
Can we go through the list? Do you have it in front of you? Do you have the list?
I don't think I need it in front of me.
Okay, go ahead and rattle off the names of the players, not just the players that they had on their roster already, because they had running backs to begin with, but the players who the Texans signed in free agency just at that position.
I can list off the top of my head David Johnson, who was already on the roster. They signed Phillip Lindsay. They signed Mark Ingram. They signed Rex Burkhead. And I'll see if I'm missing anybody.
You are missing some notable names in that I think are going to add to the comedy of this. Because Mark Ingram at the tail end of his career, Philip Lindsay, who couldn't beat out Melvin Gordon in Denver. The Rex Burkhead signing is inexplicable to me, other than Nick Caserio came from New England and now is running the Houston Texans operation, except not really, because it's evil mad preacher Jack Easterby, I should say.
Jack Easterby.
I got mixed up. All right. Instead of listing, well, actually, Dane Kinderland has written in, and we'll end with this. The dumbest thing in sports this week is the continuation of the air pollution going on at 104.5 The Zone with the Buck Reising show. I like this. God bless Lucas Panzica for dealing with it. He sends a bunch of laughing emojis. Love you guys. Bring us Babs versus Buck. So we've clearly got an infiltrator who is Team Don Davenport. And yes, I will continue to pollute these airwaves, but I will not do so too much coming up next, because Chris Burke is going to join us, and we'll talk about some college baseball. I'm Buck Reising of the aforementioned air pollution here on 104.5 The Zone.
Thanks, Bill. Have a great day.
Every time our seniors pick up their prescriptions, they're saving money thanks to Medicare Part D. Now, Washington's special interests want to dismantle this vital program and use the money to pay for a part
Hey, I'm good, man. How you guys?
We're doing just fine. We're trying to keep up with the Julio Jones stuff and mix in a little college baseball in between. We got some exciting games coming up for both Vandy and the Vols.
Yeah, you guys are busy.
No question about it. You guys are going to be busy once this super regional gets underway. I know you and Tom are going to be on the call for the Vols for Vol baseball super regional against LSU. What do you make of Paul Minieri and the chirping that he's doing down on local radio about the environment that Lindsey Nelson Stadium has had when last these two teams played?
Well, you might need to fill me in if there's anything new. Of course, I caught what he said the last time around. So are we speaking about that, or is there something new that I'm not aware of?
He was on radio yesterday. Lucas, can we play the audio for Chris Burke? Do you have that available? It wasn't yesterday, you said?
Well, he wasn't on the radio yesterday. He was, but he wasn't speaking on that. That was just kind of revived from that conversation in April. The show host, T-Bob Hebert, kind of revived it, saying Paul's going to get nasty with Tennessee fans
Well,
this
then
weekend.
that's my mistake for getting caught up in the viral clips that were going around.
Sometimes you got to stay on top of which ones are current and which ones are recycled, right?
I'm trying to, man. The internet is a dangerous place, Chris.
Hard.
But what do you make of the tension between these two teams?
Well, I think it's fascinating, honestly. I think there's so many layers of it. You know, early on we had, just kind of very shock and awe of, the head coach at Louisiana State University being blown away by the atmosphere at Lindsey Nelson.
Right.
That was kind of out of left field. Sorry for the pun. You just didn't see that coming. And so then you dig into it a little bit and you go, okay, well, man, this deal's gotten pretty fiery in Knoxville, And so as the season unfolded, it just grew and grew and grew. And now Tennessee's, even though they're not nearly as big as Mississippi State or Arkansas, Ole Miss, or LSU from a attendance standpoint, I do think their crowd is as impactful, or at least, in the discussion of being as impactful as any going right now. And so I do think that's a part of what LSU will be up against this weekend because, to a degree, I think a lot of people are bringing up what Coach Minieri said a couple months ago. And I think in a lot of ways that's only going to intensify how fired up the Tennessee fan base is right now.
Well, and certainly the product on the field is reason enough to get fired up outside of just the competitiveness between SEC fan bases. What's the better performance that you've seen, Chris, from this Vols team? Is it the Evan Russell grand slam, 3 home runs in a game, or is it the walk-off grand slam in the first game of by Drew Gilbert in Friday's regional performance last week?
It's a great question. We were doing some of our prep meetings yesterday, getting ready to call, the series this weekend, and I was kind of filling in our producer a little bit, who hadn't been quite as on it week to week as I have, and it starts with that LSU series. Not only the team sweeping LSU, and Evan Russell hitting 3 home runs in one of those games, Sean Hunley getting 2 wins and a save that weekend, I think 2 of the wins were walk-off. So that was an incredible weekend. That was kind of like, ooh, Tennessee's going to be real. I think that made them 5-1 to start the conference play. And so that was kind of their we're here moment. And then Russell hits 3 home runs, including a grand slam to beat Vanderbilt. And Max Ferguson hits 2 home runs and a 3-run walk-off to beat Arkansas. And then Drew Gilbert hits a grand slam in game 1 of the regional when they were down by 3 in the bottom of the 9th with 1 out. So they've kind of just kept one-upping themselves, really. And what's fascinating is, other than Russell's 2-3 home run games, it's been somebody different each time, which is part of the beauty of that team. So it's hard to say, but there's only thing you can say. It's been a magical season from the standpoint of all those moments have happened at home, and so the fans have really been able to celebrate all those memorable moments. And but if you're ranking them, you have to put Gilbert's number 1 because boy, you lose game one of a regional.
Right.
LSU was able to pull it off, but for the most part, you lose game one of a regional and you're in big trouble.
Chris Burke of ESPN here with us on 104.5 The Zone.
So, Chris, what has that progression through the season been like for you? Because the last time Tennessee had any kind of magic like this, you were in Knoxville in 2001, and then after you left, of course, in 2005, the last time the Vols were in the Super Regionals. So what's it like to see it from a media perspective? You're almost just as involved. You're just calling the games as Tennessee kind of recaptures that baseball magic that was around when you were in Knoxville.
Yeah, I think for me, there's two different aspects. Number one, from somebody who loves college baseball and covers the sport day in and day out for the last almost decade, it's been and just sees how so many of the fan bases, specifically in the SEC, get to enjoy college baseball so much. It's been a pleasure for me just to be able to see the University of Tennessee's fan base enjoy the sport. Because to be honest, it's been since 2005 since Tennessee was any good. Obviously the 19 team made the tournament and went to a regional final, so I don't want to downplay that team. But as far as on a national level to be this competitive, and the game is the scene of college baseball is very much different than it was then. Now every game's on TV in some form or fashion, and the stadiums and the arms race from a facility standpoint in the league, the salary of the coaches, the attention that the national media pays to it, like it's just in a very different place. So the Tennessee people, the Tennessee fans, have never really got to enjoy the current version of college baseball. So that's been really cool for me to see. A fan base that I'm attached to and love so much get to enjoy the sport. And then from an analyst standpoint, I think, I'll be honest, I've spent all year trying to gauge, okay, how good is this team? Are they really in it for the long haul, or are their warts going to catch up with them? And specifically for me, the thing I just wasn't sure about was their bullpen going to be able to hang in there? And while I still think their bullpen is unique from the standpoint of they don't have those power arms. Guys like Sean Hunley and Redna Walsh and now Cam Sewell have really just done a fantastic job, and they continue to answer the bell and get it done. And so I think from a position player standpoint, offense and defense, they are as talented as anybody. The starting rotation's been solid. Blade Tidwell's becoming a star. And so as long as that bullpen can continue to come up with ways to either close out games or keep games close to give their position players a chance, Tennessee's, they're going to be a tough out for the long haul here.
Talking college baseball, Vols, and here in just a second, Vandy with Chris Burke of ESPN. We would be remiss, of course, not to mention Vanderbilt, the defending national champions, getting ready to host a super regional of their own against East Carolina this weekend. Chris, what is the biggest difference from last year's team to this year's Vandy team as they're currently constructed?
I think they lack that star power. You're talking about the 2019. They lack that star power. How often are you going to have two top five picks? Well, I guess Vanderbilt, anything's possible, right? But, you got Austin Martin and J.J. Bleday in the same lineup. And then you got guys like, Phil Clark, who's, for me was, almost as talented as the other two. And so the offense just had so much sizzle, right? Just so much star power in that offense. And, the pitching was good enough. Drake Fellows and obviously Kumar became a superstar in the postseason. This year's team is more about the starting rotation, and then the offense is kind of a collective unit, right? I mean, you're getting great performances by Isaiah Thomas and Dominic Keegan and Carter Young, and like Enrique Bradfield is just a total game changer. So there's star pieces there, but just not as maybe big and bright as guys like Austin Martin and J.J. Bleday were. That being said, I still think Vanderbilt's got as good a shot to win the whole thing as anybody, especially when you look at the way Kumar and Leiter pitched last weekend.
He is Chris Burke of ESPN. He's going to be on the call with Tom Hart for this weekend's Vols Super Regional down there in Knoxville, or I guess over there in Knoxville. against LSU. Chris, enjoy the baseball. We'll certainly be watching. It's been really fun to follow along all year.
Yeah, I think the funnest moments are right ahead. It's pretty cool for the state to have two such talented teams, and we'll see. I'd say you give them both a great chance this weekend, but that's why they play the game. So we will see.
At Chris Burke 02 is where you can follow him. VFL himself. I don't know which one I'm more excited for. I mean, LSU is trying to juice this Vols Super Regional up for me. Like ECU's not out here talking smack to Vanderbilt, which I hate to, because this is playing into Vandy baseball fans, narrative that the world doesn't care about college baseball in the state until Tennessee is good, which I hate for them, but it's kind of true. We'll pivot and we'll talk about the best wide receiver running back combinations in the NFL right now. So I think the Tennessee Titans got a pretty good case. You want to weigh in? You can do so as well. 615-737-1045. I'm Buck Reising. It's 1045 The Zone.
The 3HL. Here's what you missed.
Oh, he's taking his shirt off. He's taking his shirt off.
Oh, my gosh.
I really thought you were going to throw the boom boom
crazy.
shirt.
Oh, my gosh. He had a white tank top on.
Let's go.
The 3HL with Brent Doherty, Don Davenport, and Ron Slay. This afternoon starting at 3, 1045 The Zone.
coming up next. It is a particular day of significance for me, for a lot of Titans fans, for Will, for anybody who listens to Bussin' with the Boys. Because today is June the 9th, 6/9, 69. Nice. Let me be not even a little more subtle. But I say all that to say that it makes us remember our friend Matt Neely, who passed away tragically a couple of years ago, the 2019 season. He was a big part of what Bussin' with the Boys is and did end up becoming. He was there on the ground floor before it got acquired by Barstool Sports. Now, a lot of you had interactions with Neely either at Titans games or on the internet. And I do struggle sometimes with it because I see a lot of people kind of latch onto it in a way that makes me feel like my friend is being used for clicks. But it is good to be able to remember him, to be able to eulogize him a little bit. This is not the day that he passed away, but of course, Matt Neely, infamous for his 69 jokes. Taylor Lewan wearing a 69 Neely jersey sometimes when he walks into the stadium for home games. Will Compton the same. It's I swear I'm not choking up. It's just the pistachios. I'm not doing what Blaine does. It cracks me up when Blaine eats on air because I can hear what he's eating. I promise I'm not doing that. I just had like a piece of it stuck in my throat and I couldn't get rid of it during the commercial break. Anyway, I'm trying to do serious stuff here. Trying to remember my friend passed away, being sabotaged by my own lack of professionalism, eating pistachios right before the music starts playing. But Will Compton will be here momentarily, and we will remember our friend Matt Neely with him, and we'll also talk about what happened on the latest episode of Bussin' because they had Quentin Nelson on, who many Titans fans last remember or last saw Quentin Nelson getting absolutely manhandled by Jeff Simmons. So that is the greatest memory that many Titans fans have of Quentin Nelson.
Besides that video of him and Lewan in a hot tub.
Oh, that's right. What were they? There was a Nicki Minaj, Migos.
I think it was Cardi B.
Might be Cardi B. I can't remember what they were covering, but it was spectacular. It was very well done. They were like in Cancun. They were in a hot tub. It was the same place where the music video was shot. And Quentin Nelson was Cardi B. Taylor Lewan was Quavo. And it went viral for a great many reasons, especially, when you're talking about
300-plus offensive linemen.
Well, that's not where I was going. I'm going to steer away from it before it gets me fired for saying something that I shouldn't say into the mic. But I want to start here before we get to Compton, because we were going to have a conversation. This is why my ADD is a problem, because we were going to have a conversation about the best wide receiver running back combos in football right now. We had that conversation with Eric Galko of the East-West Shrine Bowl earlier in the show. And if you missed any of the interviews that we did, like Eric Galko or Chris Burke or Will Compton coming up next, you can subscribe to the Buck Reising Show, wherever it is you get your podcast. But this just popped up on my timeline. It's an ad for Teamwork. Teamwork, like the job application site. Teamwork Online Jobs. The position for a data analyst for the Tennessee Titans has just been posted on teamwork.com. Now, this may be insignificant to many of you, unless you saw that the Tennessee Titans, in a study done by ESPN analytics department, I believe Seth Walder was the one who went around crowdsourcing basically all 32 NFL teams to see just how much or how many resources any particular NFL team had designated to analytics. Now, analytics can mean a great many things. The term analytics is broad, it is wide-ranging, it is vast. It does not necessarily apply to one specific study of analytics. Analytics can mean a great many things. But the Tennessee Titans were the only team in football without one person, specifically hired or with data/analytics in their job title. The only team without one. Now, that's something I've asked Mike Vrabel about before. Now, it's been a little while since we talked to Mike about it. Probably most recently after the lack of a decision to go for it on 4th and 2 against the Baltimore Ravens, to punt in that spot. Whereas several NFL teams have coaches basically on the sideline, people who are qualified, who are members of the staff of an NFL team, whether coaches in their title or not. They're basically there or in the booth with direct access to the head coach who pulls the trigger on such decisions, saying, hey, please tell us that X, Y, and Z is the right decision. Mike Vrabel does not have one of these people. He has Stretch, who is his assistant, and a lot of these duties, a lot of these numbers studies, for lack of a better term, are put on Stretch's plate. Now, Stretch has a great many responsibilities as the assistant to the head coach. But now it seems that the Titans have found out that they're the only team in the NFL without one, without someone, somebody, anybody working with data or analytics in their job title. So if you want to be the data analyst for the Tennessee Titans, they're hiring right now on Teamwork Online Jobs.
You want to throw your name in?
Do I?
Pick up a third job?
No. Are you kidding me? When do I have time? When do I have time? I don't have time for the stuff I'm doing now. You just sick of me already? You want me to spend more time away from you?
What do you think Mike Vrabel's reaction would be when, hey, Mike, let's meet our new data analyst? Hey, Mike.
Hey, bud. What's up? That decision on 4th and 2, that's pretty dumb. Probably shouldn't do that next time. No, are you kidding me? We can't even do math on live air when we're trying to figure out like simple percentages. I'm going to be a data analyst? Stop it.
I was proud of Will Bowling on the Nashville Soccer Show for saying 60 divided by 3 is 20. So we got something right.
Something right. That's all it takes. So there will be no data analyst. Perhaps we should hire a data analyst for this show.
Yeah,
I think that's technically Will Bowling, isn't it? Digital executive producer, whatever.
Yeah,
the hell.
actually, he kind of is. He looks at podcast numbers, digital numbers. Yeah.
So technically, that's Will Bowling. Okay. When we come back, we will commemorate our friend Matt Neely. We will catch up with the latest going on with Bussin' with the Boys. Will Compton joins us next. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Do you breathe Titans football? Yeah, so do we. Your home for Titans football and the flagship for Titans radio. 104.5 The Zone.
It is June the 9th, so of course we are celebrating Matt Neely. We are having a conversation about Julio Jones, and of course you have a new podcast that's available wherever it is that you get your podcast. Subscribe, rate, and review to Bussin' with the Boys in your favorite podcast app. Where would you like me to start? Where would you like to go first?
I think we have to start with the celebrity golf softball game.
Okay, good, because then I'll come after you for your golf swing. So,
I know you want to, but just remember this, Buck.
Yep.
I know I saw your sweet justice, whatever you got to tell yourself, because number one, we'll get into that. We're talking skill, talent. We're also talking effort as well. So keep that in mind.
Sure.
But number two, my content is out there for you to, jab at me. Don't forget I had photographers out at the softball game. So we have some nice images.
Oh no.
yeah.
Damn it.
Jack was like, I wanted to send Buck pictures, but I kind of didn't know if he wanted them because of the way his throwing motion was at times.
Like, the way it looks.
Yeah, he's like, I didn't want to be, I didn't want to be mean to him or make it seem like I'm coming off mean.
You know what? That's totally fair. I respect Jack so much more. Jack, one of the many producers that Bussin' with the Boys has. And part-time videographer / person who captures my shame.
I would have just put them on Twitter without asking.
Yeah, that's because you're a terrible teammate, Lucas. So let's start with celebrity softball. So the Nashville Sounds, for a great cause, Folds of Honor, Will and myself, among many other people, were invited to participate at First Horizon Park, of course, where the Nashville Sounds play. Will and I, despite our best efforts, were teammates on Team Bradshaw Bourbon. Terry Bradshaw was our coach. Jelly Roll was on our team. Jelly Roll, probably the star of the show, out there looking like an absolute stud. But so I told Will, I called him. I said, because I was a late invite, I'm not sure who dropped out. It was either AJ or Taylor that I got their spot. But I got a late email about it. And I said, you know what, sure. I didn't really think about it. I said, sure, I'll go out. Why not? It'll be fun. And then I realized I probably haven't played a team sport since like high school football. And even then it was a stretch. Okay. It's been a long, long time since I've done anything athletically that's not golf or tennis, things that I can completely control, that I don't have to rely on anybody else for. And nobody else has to be, held responsible for my actions on an athletic field of play. So I called Will and I said, yeah, I don't think this is a good idea. I've already said yes, but I don't think I should do it. And then you peer pressured me. This is on you. You peer pressured me into coming out. And then what was the results of this? I gave up the first damn home run of the game.
Yeah, number one, you already pointing the finger at me before we've gotten started.
It's on you.
It says a lot because it makes sense. It aligns with the way it aligns with your teammate ability anyway. Like you're not. Dude, we were warming up before, right? And obviously, like, it's not like I'm expecting a lot of Buck.
Okay. And
I'm like, hey, you seem like you're getting pretty nervous. Hey, it's a lot easier to be up there in the press box behind the mic and commentating than being out here on the field, huh?
Yep.
He's laughing. We're bantering back and forth. My man throws the first ball, and I'm like, oh, snap. Like,
yep.
Yeah, he's pretty rough in the athletic ability field. But that's not what grinded my gears.
Yeah.
That is not what upset me. You can coach skill. You can coach technique. You can't coach effort. And what Buck displayed at the Nashville Sound Stadium that night, he gave up the first home run and not only gave it up, he stood and watched the ball go by him.
Yeah.
Blamed it on the sun. The sun was tough.
The sun was tough.
But there was zero effort to try and catch the ball. And then there was zero effort to help your fellow teammate, like, be a cutoff man to try to get it to home plate or try to get it to the infield.
Yeah.
Buck just stood there and watched. And that was the first hit. That was the first
It was
play
the first hit.
And it wasn't over after that. There was another time Buck's just not hustling. I'm like, yo, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And yeah, my competitive nature is
look at you. You're getting red in the face again.
Yeah, I do apologize for being mean at times because I was thinking back. I was like, man, I was really going after him a little bit.
No, but listen,
I was so bamboozled by the lack of effort, and I'm like, what are you doing, bro?
No, and it's completely fair because I went out there. I didn't think anybody was actually going to take it seriously. And then I look at Will, who is red in the face, screaming at people, trying to call out. There's a left-handed batter up at the plate. He's telling people to adjust for the shift. He is screaming. He's literally acting like he's playing middle linebacker for the Titans defense, and he's the one wearing the green dot, and he's going to make all the call. It was unbelievable. But here's what I'll say, because I will be held accountable. I am absolutely, in fact, I think it would be good for Jack to put these things out there so that I can feel the shame that I put on other professional athletes when I sit here safely in my studio in front of the microphone just ripping people. But at least, Will, I will defend myself in only this way. At least I was willing to put it out there that I should not have been out there by any stretch of the imagination. That I am willing to publicly humiliate myself for other people's enjoyment, except for yours because you were pissed.
Yeah, I think I was just extremely bothered by the lack of effort. And not only that, the blame game and justifications when we got to the dugout.
Yeah.
Like why, X, Y, and Z. And it's just like, that's not like, you're not getting it. Like you didn't even try.
I did not.
It's like, and every time you do, you leave your teammates behind. Me in particular. Remember the Titans?
Yeah, but okay. The one thing that you're not supposed to do, no matter how bad your teammates are throw your hands up in the air. That's what I hear from Vrabel all the time at practice. Will straight up just all but tossed his glove in the air.
Yeah, you are right. You were definitely not supposed to do that. But in that moment, you were no longer a teammate. You're like, oh, this dude doesn't care about us out
here. This dude is.
I didn't think anybody was going to take it seriously. Like, Buck, no one just stands there when a play is going on. Like, you don't have to take it seriously, but there's some level of move around and be like, hey, I'll cut the ball off here.
Yeah, we'll be better next year is all I can say. Will Compton of Bussin' with the Boys here with us on 104.5 The Zone. We got the win, though. The team got the win, despite my best efforts.
We did get the win.
Despite my best efforts, we got the win.
Fortunately, you had to leave and do a radio show, so I think we got a little boost there because we got to skip you in the batting lineup.
Hey, listen, I'll take my RBI, and I don't care that I got out. I'll take my RBI, and you'll be happy with it. That's the best I can do.
Yeah, that was pivotal. That run counted.
That's right, because we won by one run. Yeah. Now is the time that you can say thank you. Okay, Will Compton. He's literally on the bus right now. We're going to see if we can't orchestrate a situation. People are tweeting us right now. 2020 Super Bowl champ says Will Compton, quoting, "Remember the Titans to Buck Reising," goat emoji. Yeah, okay. Let's gas him up a little more. Everybody's Titans on the brain, Julio Jones, all that. So let's go there. Or do you want to? What else did you want to do? Matt Neely first, and then you want to talk about?
Oh,
Julio?
Dude, it's 6-9 day. It's Matt Neely day. Okay. Of course, we need to shower the boy with love.
Yeah.
Gosh, I miss him all the time.
Yeah, so the significance of people, because there's a lot of Titans fans who know Matt Neely, but there are probably some people in the audience who don't. Matt Neely is a Titans super fan in this life and the hereafter. He was very, very proud of the 69 jokes that became a bit of a calling card for him. But he's also, and Will, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, he's also a founding member of Bussin' with the Boys.
Yeah, Matt was people know Matt a lot as being a super fan. Like he's in the Hall of Fame. If there's a Tennessee fan Hall of Fame, he's in it. His banner's hanging up in the stadium. He's been a 12th man. His family was a 12th man after his passing. But Matt is a legend. And Matt was also somebody who worked extremely hard for Bussin' with the Boys. He was like our first hire. And Matt was 24/7, 365. He was all about the brand Bussin' with the Boys, getting it off the ground. The reason we have tailgates and watch parties is because Matt talked me into getting the bus towed to the home games on game days. Because in that time, that's when I went to the Saints for a minute, and then I ended up playing for the Raiders. But I was always like, I don't know if I'm gonna be here. And Matt's like, dude, hey, I'll handle it. Like if you just give me the green light, like I will take care of everything. And Matt was he was all time, man. I just know he'd be so happy right now and fired up about it, about where the bus is, and we wouldn't be here without him. And my man would get up at 6 a.m., make sure the bus is towed. He would, at his own expense, go shirtless, get a dunking tank, let people dunk him, like make fun of himself. Like Matt was the best. I can't say enough about him, and I miss him all the time.
Yeah, he's the whole reason that you and I have I don't know if it's a friendship. I don't know if we're teammates.
That is true.
He's the whole
We're
reason we
friends,
have this
Buck. We are
relationship.
friends. You're right. He talked to me and he was like, bro, I just have Buck on because, majority of the time football players are always like anti-media. Every athlete's like anti-media. Like, even though you're always one of the cool ones, you're always very weary about being around the media. And Matt talked us into having Buck on the bus because he talked about how well he did on Facebook, and it matters and his audience matters. And yeah, Buck came on the bus and we had a good time there. But yeah, Matt is definitely responsible for all that.
So, Lucas, this may seem a little bit. I don't know how to celebrate Matt Neely other than to have Stephen A. Smith wish him a happy birthday on June the 9th, 6-9. Do we have Stephen A. Smith available?
Happy birthday to him. I don't care. Good luck.
Happy June 9th, Matt Neely.
And we do care.
We do care. We miss you very, very much. All right, Julio Jones of the Titans. You hype?
Oh yeah. I mean, if I'm not playing on another team, I'm definitely hype. But if I'm on another team, it's like, hey, how are we going to control this man? You know what I mean? So I'm definitely excited. I mean, this is one of the best offenses on paper I feel like you've seen in a long time, and everybody will get to have fun playing fantasy football up until the season and figuring out what's going to happen. But I mean, you got Julio, AJ, and Derrick Henry, and Ryan Tannehill dishing the ball everywhere, and the sleeper dark horse Anthony Ferkser with one of the better O lines on paper in the league. How you just not get excited about what the Titans might do this year?
No, literally, they have been on the front page of ESPN 3 days in a row. That's never happened before. It may never happen again. It's a big deal that Julio Jones comes to this particular offense. But from your standpoint, because you spent so many years in the NFC, I understand linebackers don't often cover wide receivers unless they get put in a bad spot by offensive coordinators. But you've seen Julio work in previous times throughout the course of your career in the league. What makes him so difficult to defend?
He can do everything. I mean, he's a big-bodied receiver who has a huge catch radius. He can catch every ball. The dude is an alien. He can go up top on you. He can catch the deep ball. He can hit them short. The smoke throws when you just smoke it when it's a run play. And I'm sure they'll have some camaraderie there to where you'll see kind of like that Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Freeman-esque, or when Matt Ryan used to do with Julio, where you just smoke it out to Julio depending on what kind of cushion he's getting. But Julio was a monster to defend. I know we played him a couple times when I was in Washington. We would always have, it'd be like double the star would be the call, and you would always have to have a safety over top of Julio. They also had Devontae Freeman. I know we were talking what are some of the best wide receiver running back combos I played against, and now that I'm talking about it, I forget what a threat Devontae was, both running the ball in that zone run scheme, and how much he was a threat receiving as well, to get paired with Julio when he was like, in his prime.
Peak, yeah.
I'm not saying he's out of his prime. He's obviously older now, but defending that man when you also had a threat like Devontae Freeman in the backfield, it was just a nightmare to prepare for. So him paired with Derrick Henry and AJ, man, it's like, I don't know. It's going to be nuts. I mean, he's an alien. He's a future Hall of Famer, and he is now a Titan.
It's crazy.
It really is. It's crazy. Like even the media, like the media obviously wins, and the city of Nashville wins, because I think I was seeing comparisons of what the roster, like who the stars were back in like 2013, 2015.
Yeah, you're talking about my tweet, you jerk. Credit where credit is due.
Is it yours?
Yes, it was mine.
If it is yours, that's my bad. Like,
absolutely disrespectful.
You kind of nod like, oh yeah, that is a very good point. And like the three-headed monster, the quote unquote superstars that are on the team now, like you got face of a franchise. The coverage that it's going to bring to Nashville is going to be big. So everybody's winning with this.
The tweet that I'm referencing, that I demand my clout for, that Will Compton is referencing, is the year before John Robinson got here. It's 2015, and it's no disrespect to Marcus Mariota. Marcus was what he was during his time here, and he's a critical part of the history of the Tennessee Titans and how they've gotten to this point. But quarterback Marcus Mariota, wide receiver Kendall Wright and Harry Douglas, and I love Harry to death, but he's not Julio Jones, and running back Antonio Andrews, who most recently got arrested for biting a woman's nose, across the street from Tin Roof. So at this point, it's a lot different world when you're looking at A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry, Julio Jones, and ruthlessly efficient Ryan Tannehill. They have come quite a long way. Now, Tannehill restructured yesterday, Will, and he's clear. It costs 15.3 to get Julio on the books. The restructure clears up about 18. Does this bode well for you at all, do you think?
I mean, I think that's the move that everybody was anticipating,
Sure.
and it makes sense, right? What they do avoided some years, so Ryan's essentially making the same money. I think they just moved some stuff around and put a couple ghost years in there to free up the books that Buck is referring to.
Correct.
But yeah, it seems like the move that made the most sense. When guys go through a restructure, unless you're getting asked to take less money, it's usually a benefit to the player because they'll get some restructuring and more money up front than they will having to wait to get it throughout the year.
So this is the least amount of time that we've talked about the podcast and one of your experiences, but there's a lot going on today that we had to cover. Bussin' with the Boys, the podcast. Will Compton, of course, co-host. Available now in your podcast feed. The boys themselves, Quentin Nelson from the Indianapolis Colts, a part of this episode. The YouTube version of the podcast debuts at 6 p.m. tonight, so make sure that you subscribe to the boys' YouTube channel. Why do you guys love Quentin Nelson so much?
He's just one of the boys, man. I know him and Taylor got super close after Quentin's rookie year. I think being out the first Pro Bowl, that's where I met Q.
Is this where Diana Rossini threw up on Taylor and their respective families?
Yeah, we were all in the Hulk, and Diana's sitting behind a couple back behind me, but she's like with our party, and she ends up throwing up mid-ride of the Hulk. But Taylor, we all met out there. I know Taylor obviously knew Quentin before that. And then I know that following off season, Taylor and Quentin trained together out in California. They got super close. So they've just been boys. And then Quentin came out to Taylor's birthday party that he had in July. And that's when Quentin came on the bus the first time. Quentin and I got to know each other a little more. And then Quentin has been out rehabbing in Nashville this past off season. So we were around each other a couple times. That's when we refer to some of the stories that we're talking about. But Q's just been one of the boys, man. I know him and Taylor are tight. And, it's just been I've gotten to be like a little bystander, a little byproduct relationship with Quentin since then. So he's a stud. He's a sweetheart, dude. He's a super guard. He's an all-pro guard, but he's also a sweetheart.
Oh, he's about to get paid too. That's what the Colts are saving all their money for.
Oh, he's
going to be nice.
To get paid, and it's going to be beautiful. I know he's on the Colts. Obviously, there's that rivalry there. So obviously, I hope the Titans are always beating the Colts. But you love to see when one of the boys gets paid.
No question about it. Will Compton, for as much hell as he gives me, and I didn't even come after you about your golf swing. That's how much I respect how you treated our relationship as teammates for just one day. I respect your criticism. I will watch the film. I will improve. I don't know how much I'm capable of improving, but it'll be damn better the next time that we get out there. If indeed we are, at least if I'm invited back to the Sounds Celebrity Softball Game. Bussin' with the Boys is the podcast. Will Compton, brought to you as always by All American Pest Control. Plans starting at just $39 a month. Visit yuckbugs.com. Thanks, Will.
Buck, you're a legend. Thanks for having me on, brother.
We will come back and wrap up the show. It's time for some poll questions. I'm Buck Reising. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Need a Titans fix? Bam! Just ask Alexa to play 104.5 The Zone. Your home for Titans football and the flagship for Titans radio. 104.5 The Zone.
coming up tomorrow, as I mentioned. I can't remember. We started this conversation, then I got distracted. So instead of starting this conversation again and getting distracted, why don't we just do the polls? Who you got for me, Lucas?
Stop the count. Stop the count. The polls have closed, and the votes have been tallied. It's the segment where bias takes over and nuance goes to die. Now, here's your favorite Buck Reising Show daily correspondent, Lucas Polzica.
Thank you, Root. Take it away, bud.
Yes, thank you, Root. Dumbest thing in sports this week. We went over a lot of these, but a couple that we missed. One saying the Colts are the division favorites over the Titans. We did play the Colin Cowherd audio. Another, the Tennessee ticket office. That created quite a stir today. Tennessee's ticket office selling tickets for, of course, the Super Regional this weekend against LSU. A lot of people struggling to get tickets to that game. Seems as though trying to call in, people couldn't get through. That was all over my timeline this morning of people furious, people that have been going to games all season, not able to get in and go to that game.
So you did a little background research on this during our pre-show meeting. What were you able to discern? Is this like a legitimate gripe that people have?
Yeah, I called my guy Russell Smith over at the Drive, and he kind of echoed some of the stuff that John Reed told me because I texted him about it. Basically, season ticket holders got up to 8 apiece. So if you were a season ticket holder, you were able to buy up to 8 tickets for this weekend, which had not really been happening. This was John Reed's text to me. Football boosters got to buy a bunch. Baseball season ticket holders could get 8 apiece. I'm convinced they didn't have more than 100 to sell today to the general public.
I mean, this is a gripe that, and Lindsey Nelson Stadium is a little different, right? Because the capacity is so much smaller than your standard college baseball stadium might be. I mean, it sucks. It sucks for the fans. Like, I get why people are upset, but this is the way of the world. It's why the Super Bowl is not for the fans. It's for the corporate sponsors. It's why when you're talking about renovations for Nissan Stadium, the first thing that's brought up when you're talking about requirements to host a Super Bowl is the idea that Nissan Stadium doesn't have enough luxury suites in the stadium. Money over everything, every time, even at the expense of the people whose support has helped get them to this point.
It is unfortunate because the support's been constant all year, but if you want the money to build new facilities, have a better stadium. Tennessee's got one of the worst baseball stadiums in the SEC. Got to make your boosters happy.
I guess so.
How many weddings is too many weddings to go to in a year? 1, 2, 3, 4 or more. 28%, majority say 1.
I've got 7 before football
season. Yeah,
season.
that's like insane. That's just ridiculous. Like, do you have to go to all 7?
No.
Far Center says, don't usually go to weddings unless it's a family member. Most of the time, those people just get divorced a year later anyway.
I mean, preach to the choir, right? The divorce rate in this country is now higher than the amount of people that stay together. Turns out, marriage not exactly the and I say this from a position of not being a married person, so what the hell do I know? But a lot of times, and this sounds wretched to say, and hopefully nobody whose wedding I'm attending, or more importantly not attending, is listening to this. But a lot of times, I'm thinking the same thing. I'm thinking, you guys aren't going to last 5 years. You don't actually want to get married. You're just getting desperate because we're in our late 20s now, and you're worried that you're going to end up alone for the rest of your life. Turns out, that may be the right decision. Not everybody's meant to get married.
Well, let me counter. You have 7 weddings. So would you rather? I've got 2 weddings this year. I've already been to one in East Nashville. It was lovely. And I'm going to one this weekend in Dothan, Alabama.
Yeah, that stinks.
So would you rather have to go to 7 weddings or have to go to 1 wedding in Dothan, Alabama?
Well, 7 weddings, because the majority of the weddings are places that I don't mind to be. Like, they're in Nashville, they're in Indianapolis. I've got one in Cleveland, my cousin's wedding in Cleveland. I'm flying up this weekend. Cleveland kind of stinks, but if I got to go, at least
it's better than Dothan, Alabama.
Yeah, that's fair.
The armpit of Alabama, which is the armpit of the U.S.
Who do these people that are getting married listen to the show?
I hope not. Yeah, it's my girlfriend's college roommate who lives in Dallas and is getting married in Dothan.
Is that a family thing?
Yeah, it's a family thing.
That sucks.
Swaggy P. Knuckles says, I eloped and I've donated my body to science when I'm gone. So in essence, I've skipped my wedding and I'll skip my funeral.
Yeah, I mean, the funeral I'm more prone to, even though I think I'd prefer to be cremated just because I'm a show pony and I would like people to celebrate me, even if it's just
Scatterbuck's ashes in Nissan Stadium.
Even if it's just there to, make sure I'm dead. I want something like that to be a party. So the idea of weddings and funerals, I'm not necessarily opposed to, but yeah, that's just me being self-involved.
What's the best running back wide receiver duo in the NFL? Many are saying A.J. Brown / Julio Jones and Derrick Henry. You can only pick one. Farsender says, as much as I want to be biased and go with the Titans, I have to say Evans and Godwin of the Bucks, at least until we see what Jones and Brown offense actually looks like.
Well, those are two wide receivers, so that invalidates the answer because it's a wide receiver running back.
Right. Josh Griffin says Kamara. That's fair.
Yeah. I think we need to have a conversation. I don't think we, and by we I mean you, so I'll pay $1 to throw you under the bus. I don't think you phrased the poll question from my Twitter account the way that I wanted the poll question phrased. So we will revisit this topic tomorrow because I think there's still some meat on the bone.
How would you want it phrased?
Well, I think it's more about the wide receivers than it is about the running back. Like if you're gonna do who's the best wide receiver running back combo, I think it's a much different conversation than the one that we had earlier with Eric Galko about the best wide receiver tandems in the NFL right now.
So did you want to make this wide receiver duo or wide receiver running back duo?
I did. I'm pretty sure you just weren't listening.
Okay, I might have gone rogue there.
Yeah.
Anyway, shouts for Aaron Jones and Devontae Adams.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah, Saquon Barkley and Kenny Golladay. I don't know about that one.
Saquon Barkley, I mean, he plays for a terrible team, and he's really fun when they're like not getting in his way. But outside of that, like Saquon Barkley doesn't translate to wins.
Which super regional series are you most excited about this weekend? Vols or Vandy Boys? 64% say Vols.
I am inclined to believe or to buy into that as well, just because LSU's baseball coach is making this so much more spicy. Like there's legitimate hatred between these teams, and I am a proponent for hatred in sports.
Yeah, I mean, like Vandy LSU would be more interesting than Tennessee East Carolina.
Yeah. Oh, so Ben McKee has tweeted out about this ticket controversy. Ben McKee from VolQuest. Context from Tennessee on baseball ticket sales. There were only about 500 tickets on sale for the general public. So also providing 300 free tickets to students. So at least the students get to go. That's more important.
Yeah, and then there is some standing room only tickets available at the game for like $15 a pop. So mostly season ticket holders and boosters and the like.
Such is life.
Such is life. Apple Podcasts or Spotify? Apple or Spotify? 54% say Spotify, but it's kind of close. 46% say Apple. I'm a Spotify guy.
I'm pissed at Apple Podcasts because normally that's what I use. It's just, not for any particular reason other than that's always what I've used. But like the latest update on my iPhone has again changed the Apple Podcast situation where I can't delete the podcasts that I don't want to listen to because I got a lot of stuff on there. I just want the best of. I don't need your hour by hour. I don't need that, except for our hour by hour. Unless you're listening to all 3 hours, of course, of the Buck Reising Show podcast, because that is available wherever it is that you get your podcast. Tomorrow, the radio show going to be a lot of fun. We will have Trevor Sikkema, voice of the Titans. Mike Keith will be here as well. But in the meantime, Lane and Mickey are going to keep you entertained because that's what's coming up next.
J-Mart and Ramon. That's really all we need to say.
That's okay, too.
J-Mart and Ramon. Tomorrow morning from 6 to 10.
104.5 The Zone.